So before we plant any trees, we need to figure out where the tree is located because you just don't want to randomly guess where your trees are at. You want to base them somewhat on realistic locations, and maybe you're really trying to get an accurate course. You'd like to know exactly where trees are at, and that's where we're going to use our satellite imagery. So let's go into Unity, and here I have my inner draw is off. Okay, so base terrain inner draw is off, so you're not seeing my inner terrain at all. You don't see my foliage or my grasses terrain or anything. Grasses only refers to people planting in Unity. So if I turn off my OPCD meshes here, everything's just going to be blank, right? So if I need to plant the trees that are in this area right here, I can't really see them. And then this is my outer mesh, and that does have satellite imagery on it. And if I need to plant out there, well, that's pretty easy. I can see that, right? Um, but what about here? What is this area? How am I going to plant here? Well, you've got two options. One, option number one, which seems easily conceptually, but can be a little bit of a pain in the butt, is I can come down here to my inner, I can turn draw on, and then I get my Z fighting, okay? And now since we're planning on our inner, I can come up here to my meshes, and I could just turn my meshes off and I can plant, and I can see exactly where those trees are. And this works fine. The only problem is you can't see where your meshes are. You can get an idea. I mean, you trace them off this imagery, so you have a great idea where they are. But sometimes it's useful to know like where my fairway starts, how close am I getting to that mesh on the fairway. And you can see here because of the shadowing, you can see the bottom of this tree is right here. So this works fine. And you might have to come back here and flip back and forth between meshes and then going back to the train and planting trees. And that's fine, but and that's one workflow. That's one way to do it. So let me turn my meshes back on and let me come down here to my inner terrain and let me turn off draw again on my inner. Another option to visualize and scout trees is see this outer out here, okay? And this is my OPCD moss outer mesh, which is this material. It's just the material. But it happens that this material is using our satellite imagery as its basically texture. And you can see that right here. Um, so this outer mosh. So if I could take this material and assign it to these, I would actually get my satellite imagery here. So I can do that. So let me go to this outer mosh and outer mesh here. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to hit Control D. And now I have the same thing, and I'm going to rename this my OPCD MOS, and I'm just going to call it satellite, like that. So that way I can search for satellite, and it should come up pretty easily. Now what I can do is I can come over, and let's say I want to plant on this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now what I can do is I can come over here, and I can find my material, and I can either drag the one I just created down. Well, let's just do that. I can drag the one that I just created in here into this element one, and look what happens. Now my satellite is assigned to all those, but I still have the meshes from the rest of my, so I still can see, like clearly see my tee boxes. So now I can plant on, I'm essentially, now keep in mind, I'm planning on my inner, which is here, because I've got tree and object details turned on, or in VS Pro, I'm planning it via terrain, right? But at least I can see. Now, how do I get things back? Well, that's pretty simple. All I have to do is highlight this, and I can come back here and I can do set default, let me see, set default material, and it's back. Now, it's going to be back to what you have, remember, on your set mesh materials. So this went back to the custom one. So what I really should have done is change this back from my custom one default to something that was actually, what I really want to use at the end of the day. But you'll see on these rough ones, if I highlight this one, highlight this one, highlight this one, and highlight this one, and this one, all four, I can come over here, right click, set default materials, and they're back. And I don't even lose my vertex painting either. So if you did any vertex painting, that's sustained as well. So that's how you scout and look at the trees that you want to plant.